was. I'm still waiting for one honest anchor in the mainstream media to just look their own audience in the eye and say, hey, I apologize. We lied to you, we got it wrong, and we'll never have this happen again. I challenge your guy, Alex, who likes to write, I would say clickbaity headlines to say at least you're from a new generation of leadership. Go ahead and step up, and maybe you can do it. Or maybe, Catherine, I'd bet on you sooner to do it. But somebody needs to actually, from the next generation, heal that divide of trust between the media and the people. I'll look forward to having that conversation with the media with what happens on January 15th. It'll be a surprise. They'll try to sweep it under the rug, try to minimize the importance of Iowa, and try to set the same narrative they have been. And I think that we need to use every occasion we have to at least rebuild trust with the American public to say, here's the narrative we've set, here's where we were proven wrong, and here's where we own accountability. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider it. It'd be good for you.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy and this masterclass of a response to a woke Washington Post journalist, right? Reporter, propagandist is probably the most accurate term for this person, who decided it would be a good idea to ask Vivek about the most pressing issue of our time, right? The most pressing issue in this country, okay? Which is not the border, it's not crime, not inflation, not foreign policy. No. Not any of these issues, right, that the American people actually care about. White supremacy, right? They wanted to ask Vivek about white supremacy and if he condemns white supremacy. Now, we all know that this is a gotcha question. This is a trap question because as a Republican, okay, it doesn't matter how you answer the question. They're still going to say that you are a white supremacist, okay? In Vivek's case, he's a white supremacist in brownface, according to the liberal media, okay? And they're still going to say that, well, he refuses to condemn white supremacy even when he condemns white supremacy, okay? I mean, that's what they did to Trump. Trump condemned white supremacy 1,000 times during his presidency, but they still said that, oh, well, he's a white supremacist, right? Or that he refuses to condemn white supremacy, even though he condemned white supremacy so much, right? It's just amazing how this works. But anyways, Vivek is going to go off on this woke Washington Post supporter for asking him about white supremacy. And again, it is a masterclass that I honestly can't get enough of. And I really don't understand why he's not polling higher, considering that, in my opinion, he's the most impressive GOP candidate that I've ever seen in my lifetime, okay? He's way better than most people that I've ever witnessed, okay? And it's not even close. But for whatever reason, it's not showing up in the polls. I hope that the polls are wrong. I hope that there's a surprise that happens in Iowa that he performs a lot better than he's performing, at least better than Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. He definitely won't perform better than Trump, but regardless, I don't think he's going to beat Trump. I just want him to perform better than Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie, right? But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it.
Do you condemn white supremacy and white nationalism?
I mean, who are you with? Which it's Washington Post. All right, so potato, okay.
You know, the fact is, who are you with, right? Because it's just like, come on, bruh. Why are you asking this question? You got to be with a woke liberal media outlet to be asking a question like this. Like, golly, man. You would think out of all the questions to ask a presidential candidate, you're asking them a silly question like this? It's ridiculous. I can see why he's so frustrated. I'd be frustrated too.
Of course, I condemn any form of vicious racial discrimination in this country. But I think that the presumption of your question is fundamentally based on a falsehood that really is the main form of racial discrimination we see in this country today. Institutionalized racism is institutionalized racial discrimination that we see that doesn't come from somehow discriminating against people on the basis of some tenet of white supremacy. It's based on affirmative action. It's based on actually discriminating against people on the color of their skin in a way that's actually institutionalized today. Was there a point in our history, at points in our prior national history, where there have been vicious forms of anti-black or anti-brown discrimination throughout this country after the Civil War and otherwise? Yes. But you're looking in the rearview mirror and using that to pose a question today that is so far removed from what the reality is in America today. This myth of white supremacy, the closest you can find is Jussie Smollett, where you all were actually, speaking of trust in the media, jumping up and down over some false narrative. The best way you're able to find your best instance of white supremacy was a guy who was actually paying his other fellow people to be actually staging something that didn't happen.
Facts. Again, the demand for racism in this country is so much more than the supply. And that's why you have all these fake racial hoaxes, right? These fake hate crimes that are concocted by woke revolutionaries because they can't find real instances of racism to boo-hoo, whine, and cry about. That's why they have to fake it, right? Despite them, boo-hoo, whine, and crying and yelling about how America is such a racist country, right? It's so systemically racist, but yet you have to fake hate crimes. You have to make up the racism in order to point it out, which tells you everything you need to know about this stuff, right? It's ridiculous. But, I think his perspective is interesting. I think his answer is interesting because he talks about the fact that there is discrimination in this country, okay? When we talk about institutionalized racism, which is affirmative action. And from the perspective of a guy that, is Asian American, this is just a fact, right? This is an undisputed fact, right? We talked about Harvard a lot. That was an institution that systemically discriminated against Asians and whites. But yet this is not what the left is screaming about when they're screaming about institutional racism or systemic racism, right? They're screaming about the made up systemic racism against black people when in 2024, if you're black, you get a leg up, right? You can take shortcuts just because of your skin color, your race, or your genitalia, or who you like to sleep with, or whether or not you like your genitalia. Okay. But if you're Asian, you got to work extra hard, right? You need to have a personality, right? That's the excuse they use to discriminate against Asians. Well, you don't have a personality, right? We're going to take the person with a personality and not as great academic credentials as the Asian, okay? Because we value personality over academics, right? Even though this is supposed to be an academic institution. Again, it's amazing how this country works. This is one of the reasons why we're falling behind, right? This is one of the reasons why I think China is going to be the next great superpower. They're going to overtake the United States. They're going to destroy us, okay, on multiple fronts, right? Because as a society, we don't value meritocracy anymore, right? And the racism that is antithetical to meritocracy that we really need to be talking about, we're not talking about, right? Instead, we're talking about the imaginary form of racism that essentially is the downfall of our meritocracy. Again, it's fascinating.
And so stop picking on this farce of some figment that exists at some infinitesimally small fringe of the American public today to open our eyes to the actual real threats that we face. And I think that it's frankly questions and framings like that that has caused the American public to lose all trust in the mainstream media, I'm sorry to say, for good reason.
You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours.
Facts, because that's what they do. You got to say the magic words, right? You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy verbatim, right? And because you didn't say it verbatim, therefore you must not be condemning white supremacy, even though you say, oh, well, I condemn any form of racial hate, right? But you can't say that, right? That's not enough for the woke revolutionaries. You got to be specific. If you do not unequivocally bend the knee to the mob by saying that I condemn white supremacy and white people are so bad, right? If you don't do that, then apparently you support white supremacy, right? Which again, by the way, as a black person in this country that lives in the South, again, I'm trying to figure out where all this white supremacy is at, right? Because I don't think white people have ever held me down, okay, because I'm black. If anything, early on in life, especially when I was a teenager, going into college, I would say that the white man gave me opportunities, right? Opportunities that other people wouldn't give me, okay? And that is why, again, I'm not sure why people are so obsessed with white supremacy or this idea of white supremacy when I just personally don't see where all of it really exists, right? I'm not seeing where all this is at, right? It didn't hold me back. It didn't hold back Vivek. It hasn't held back any successful so-called person of color. Again, if we actually lived in a white supremacist society, no person of color would be successful, right? Again, you have Barack Obama, who's East African, by the way. I can't even really call him half black, right? He's half African. We had a half African president. So again, I'm trying to figure out how in the world in a white supremacist country, okay, that's so racist that you must condemn white supremacy, right? You must do it, okay, or else something bad is going to happen, okay? They're going to take over, okay? They're going to win. I'm not sure how he was elected president. It really blows my mind. I haven't figured that out yet.
But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race.
Facts.
Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
What do you expect from
Yes.
At an earlier event, you talked about members of government playing by the...
Yeah. So, again, this is how all Republicans really should be handling this question. When asked about white supremacy or to condemn white supremacy, don't play the tap dance, right? Don't play the game. Don't come out here and be like, oh, your white supremacy so bad, right? Okay. No. Don't do that, right? Come out here, speak the truth, tell it like it is, and hold the media accountable. Right? Because they're not going to hold themselves accountable, okay, for all the things that they've gotten wrong over the years, for how they misled people, for how they've divided society to push their woke agenda. So, again, there's no reason for anybody to come out here and to play their silly game. And I love the fact that Vivek is continuing to stand up to the liberal media. Unfortunately for him, he won't be in the CNN debate. He'll actually be doing a show with Tim Pool because he didn't qualify in the polls to actually be in the CNN debate. So therefore, I will not be live streaming it. I will not be watching it. I will be boycotting the debate. If anything interesting happens between Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley that's worth reacting to, I might react to it, but I'm not giving them my view, right, when it comes to that for various reasons. And part of the reason why is because Vivek is not going to be on stage. So therefore, there's no need for me to watch it. If Trump was on stage, I'll watch it. Trump's not going to be on stage. Vivek is not going to be on stage. There's no point in me watching it, right? It's probably going to be a snores fest. Don't care that much. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.